Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many people here. I'd like to resume this council meeting that we started this afternoon. Just for the audience's information, there's 3 pieces to the council meeting tonight. The first piece is the public input on the 2019 budget. And there'll be opportunity for those who signed up. There's 13 people or groups that signed up to speak with us, and I will call you forward when it's your turn. Do not worry if you did not sign up and would like to speak to us, because after those 13, we will take any other submissions from the floor. We'd ask that you try to be as concise as possible. We will allow you 10 minutes. After 9 minutes, you will hear this. That's the principal's bell, means you've got 1 minute to summarize. So thank you for that, and those will be followed by any questions that council has. Council this evening is here to listen to you and to take your input. We, of course, won't be making any budget decisions today. We'll be taking a close look at the complete budget in January, but we do appreciate you coming forward with your ideas this evening. Thank you very much. I would ask council if they have any declaration of conflict of interest on any of the items. That will be the public input or either of the hearings this evening. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I will step out for the Askew's Foods presentation. I do handle the benefits for Askew's Foods and therefore will not be involved in discussions or voting on that in the future. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other conflict of interest? Okay, for those of you who are here for any of the hearings, following the budget input, we have 3 hearings on cannabis retail store licenses, and those will be followed by statutory public hearings. We have an official community plan and a zoning amendment hearing that will follow. So please be patient. We will start with our budget input session. I would invite Sandy Milne and Brent Jetty, Salmon Arm Snowblazers. Please come on up to the mic. Sandy, if you just pull that mic just towards you and then the audience can hear you and we will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and council members. I'd like to draw your attention quickly to a map that was just put up on the screen, and that is Fly Hills, and all what you see, the red, is the trails that we have for snowmobilers and other multi-recreational users. And when I say that, what I'm referring to is more and more recreationalists in the wintertime are purchasing snowmobiles to get up into areas where they can snowboard, where they can ski, and where they can kite launch. And I don't know if people know, but there's a kite launch area up on Fly Hills. I'm a director of the Salmon Arm Snowblazers Snowmobile Club, and my name is Sandy Milne.
And I'm Brent Jetty, president of the club.
We are here this evening to request financial support for the purchase of a refurbished snowcat. The total cost of this purchase is between $50,000 and $60,000. For your information, I have passed out the economic impact of snowmobiling in Canada, 2016, to yourselves. Page 5. And I'm just drawing your attention to that so that you can see the economic impact of snowmobiling directly and indirectly. For example, employment, restaurants, grocery stores, gas sales, that sort of thing. According to British Columbia Snowmobile Federation, the sport of snowmobiling in British Columbia has an economic impact of $398 million annually and growing. A letter of support from the Shuswap Tourism notes that in the past 4 years, the sport of snowmobiling has seen a staggering 30% increase in visitation. Snowmobiling on Fly Hills in Salmon Arm has great potential to increase this statistic even more by creating a destination for tourists to come, stay, and snowmobile over the winter in the Shuswap Salmon Arm. We only need to look around in our community in the wintertime to see that snowmobile tourism is at work. See sleds on the back of people's vehicles, trailers all over. We believe that with a quality product, regularly groomed trails, safe, clean chalet, warming huts, good trail signage, safe riding conditions, and well-advertised fun events on the hill, the club, with the support of our partnerships like Recreation Sites and Trails, Shuswap Tourism, corporate sponsors, and the City of Salmon Arm, only to mention a few, we can develop and sustain a thriving snowmobile industry and tourism experience in Salmon Arm. While memberships have stayed steady, 50 to 60 memberships, and those are mostly purchased by local users because they access the mountain more than 6 times. Our membership is $90. We have seen an increase in trail day passes for 2016 and 17. A large number of these riders are from out of town and most often around holidays and weekends. It is difficult to capture and gauge the total number of users on Fly Hills, as there is a portion of users that are not captured. Why? Because at this point, our trail collecting only happens on the weekends until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The other part to this is that there's 3 access points where people can get up to Fly Hills and they miss the collection area. We encourage the honor system, depositing your trail fee in the collection box at the chalet. 3 years ago, rarely would we ever find any money in that collection box at the chalet. Now there's always money. We have really pushed the message, pay where you play. We also have a logbook at the chalet, and it is an indicator of traffic and where people are coming from. And we have a lot of out-of-towners. While the 1992 Ford tractor be prepared. There it is. There's our groomer.
Well, that pulls the groomer, yes.
Yeah, that's our tractor. While the 1992 Ford tractor and skilled groomer operating managed to get some awards, which was in your package as well, Snow Riders Choice Awards, it has not been without the help of the volunteers, each time riding in front of the tracks in order to break down the snow so that the tractor doesn't get stuck in the deep snow. And if you could just look at the Snow Riders, our awards. Oh, did I not have them here? They're in your package.
Yeah, we've got it.
Do you have them there?
Yep.
Yes. Yes, and so we won 7 out of 8 awards this year. So if you could just take a look at that, and we want to be able to continue to stand behind our product. So we've won favorite area for family snowmobilings, favorite mountain riding, best groomed trails. And I just want to reference a letter that I gave you. It's from the British Columbia Snowmobile Federation. The snowmobile areas that attract the most tourism are areas that have regularly groomed trails and a solid supporting infrastructure that includes parking lots, shelters, and signage. Salmon Arm is unique in the Fly Hills snowmobile area, provides a great family area for snowmobiling that has that great infrastructure, but they are lacking in their ability to provide a groomed trail product. The area has a lot of potential because it has low consequence terrain. That is great, even in the years with high avalanche hazard. This provides certainty to people traveling that they will be able to snowmobile regardless of the avalanche hazard on the weekend they book. So there is, well, I'm never going to say no risk, but there's very low risk on Fly Hills for avalanche. The club wants to build on our niche as a family-fun snowmobiling area. The hill accommodates all level of riders. We want to provide an even better experience for snowmobilers by improving the number of groomed trails efficiently, reliably, and safely. The club to date can contribute $10,000 towards a snowcat. Thank you for considering the Snowblazers' request for financial support to purchase a snowcat. And I did bring, for people that don't know, we host a variety of fundraising events on the mountain. And here's a photo album one of the if anybody would like, I can leave it with you.
We can pass it down.
You can have
Thank
a look at it and see that families, children, seniors are all
And that
accessing.
picture up there is similar to the thing that we're kind of looking at for a snowcat to pull the groomer part of it. Kind of replace the Ford tractor.
Yes, so this is, so that's my presentation.
Thank you very much. 8 minutes, nicely done. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'll just see if councillors have any questions. We have received all your written material. Council, any questions? Councillor Lavery?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship, and thanks for the presentation. Who else have you approached for funding, and what are the results of that, or if those are pending, or whatever else?
So we have approached LANA, Municipal Regional Destination Tax, and we're currently waiting to find out if this capital expense is eligible under that. And I just learned about it recently and sent the information to Lana, and she's now sent it to the province. We were hoping to hear an answer today, because it appears like we would fit right into that funding. We have made several applications for funding for the past 3 years since a new board came on, and we haven't been successful. We did present at the Rotary Club, and they did give us $2,500 contingent on a 3-year if we got the rest of the money, and it was $2,500. But
Thank you. And have you approached CSRD for this?
Yes, we have. That's the regional, like that Rennie and yes, and they sent us to you. So here we are.
And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Flynn?
Thank you, and it might have been helpful if I'd got in first, because Sandy met with myself and Lana, was it Thursday or Friday? They're all blending into one.
Tuesday.
Was it that, early in the week? Anyway, we met for about an hour and a half, and clearly our MRDT initiative needs to be advertised better, because people don't know about it, but the whole focus of MRDT is to try to bring tourism money to our community, or people in the off-season staying at our hotels. And as was stated, Lana is looking into MRDT funds, but one of the key things that I said is I can't see us, and we're not making decisions here, but I can't see us funding $50,000 or $60,000, but partnership may work, and I think electoral area C and D need to be approached as well. But Sandy was starting here, and she just wanted some information on what to bring and what to give us and what to provide. And I think there are some opportunities with MRDT and partnership, but Lana made it very clear with MRDT, if capital is allowed, it would still not be for all of it. It would be a portion of it, and they would want to see partnerships, and the province would be more likely to support partnerships. So there's some work to be done, but this was the first step, and I think Sandy was extremely well prepared, had a lot of information, and has provided us with a lot of information. So we know where to go to for answers to further questions as well. So thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Oh, thanks, Your Worship. Through you, thank you for the presentation. 2 quick questions. Are you a registered nonprofit?
Yes, we
And
are.
do you have a charitable?
No, we don't.
You don't have a charitable?
No.
All right. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate you coming and talking to us.
Thank
Askew's Foods, Claire Askew. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you for having me. I'm Claire Askew from Askew's. Our special budget request is for the city to improve the stretch of Lakeshore Drive that is in front of the downtown Askew's. So here's the details of what we're asking for. 1, expansion of the width of the sidewalk. 2, permission to put a patio on the expanded sidewalk. 3, planting of trees and landscaping of the sidewalk. 4, addition of a crosswalk. Miko Studios believes this will improve pedestrian safety by reducing the prevalence of jaywalking, which they see happening all the time, all throughout the day. And finally, relocation of the bus stop transit hub to a new location that is not directly in front of the store. We strongly support public transit. However, moving the bus stop would facilitate the above, and relocating the bus stop would work better for our business in other ways as well. Here's a visual of what we're looking at. So you can see in the far right photo how the street goes in for the bus hub. So we'd be looking at filling that in, although we would leave 2 parking spots at the end. And the photo on the bottom left gives you a bit of a visual of how it could look with the trees and the patio. Here's a quote that we received from Gentech Engineering. The cost of this project is estimated at $95,000 with an additional $20,000 for planting trees and landscaping. We've received support for our request. We have letters of support from the Salmon Arm Economic Development Society, Downtown Salmon Arm, Miko Studios, Bella Interiors. We've also had support from Cardio Connection, L'Original's Gallery, Dolce Coffee Bar, Hidden Gems Bookstore, as well as Whereabouts. So we were very happy that our neighbors are enthusiastic about our proposal. Why are we asking for this? Our downtown Askey's location is struggling, mainly because it's competing with Uptown, which is difficult. Uptown's a brand new store, it has an appealing design and layout, it's much larger with a greater selection, and as a result, our downtown Askey's is losing sales. We need to reposition the downtown store to make it more of a draw to shoppers. We've begun doing this in a number of ways, including the hiring of our new chef in the deli, and we also have a new meat manager making new and interesting things. We have begun the first phase of our renovation, which is demonstrating to our customers that we are making a substantial investment in the downtown store and are committed to making this store viable. We are doing a renovation in 2 phases, with the first phase budgeted at about, it's actually more like $550,000. We have spent approximately $120,000 so far. Here's some information about the first phase of our reno. By mid-February 2019, we'll have all new display cases in the produce department, new checkout stands, art installation on the walls, office removed and moved upstairs, new floral counter, some new lighting, a health and wellness center, in-store cafe, and many more deli and grab-and-go meal options. We plan to complete the second phase of the renovation of $1.5 million if the city accepts our proposal to make the changes to the street. Our second phase of the renovation would completely transform the store, with the main entrance moved to the street, all new lighting, flooring, deli relocated to the front of the store, a pizza oven, possibly even wood burning, and overall more space and emphasis given to prepared foods, including breakfast, lunch, and dinner options. We will also be looking at putting in a full coffee, beer, and wine bar. What will our proposed changes to Lakeshore Drive do for our business? The proposed changes will enable us to host more events. The Christmas tree light up and holiday local market was a success last year, and having more space in front of the store would be beneficial for building this event. We also had great success with our Askey's Downtown 50-Year Street Party this past summer, and I've been thinking about the possibility of making this into an annual Askey's Downtown Summer Street Party. Our proposal will enable us to create more of a market-style feel outside by putting bins of fruits, veggies, and plants outside the street entrance. Finally, this would allow us to create a patio and a community gathering space right in the heart of downtown. And I wanted to speak a little bit more to the importance of a patio space at the downtown Askey's. The grocery industry is changing at a rapid pace, and in order for our downtown store to succeed, we believe that more than ever we need to double down on our strength of being a community hub and a place for people to meet and socialize. Here's a quote from a May 2017 Globe and Mail article titled, "Rethinking the Supermarket, Grocers Look to Adopt an Old Model for New Consumers." One after another, traditional food retailers have had to fend off new competition from the likes of Walmart, Costco, ethnic grocers, and even dollar stores. Meanwhile, the threat of the as-of-yet unknown plans of Amazon Fresh, already in place in certain U.S. cities, hangs overhead. Figures released this week show the market share that traditional grocers have been losing to Walmart and Costco is finally slowing. Still, traditional grocers' share of food sales has shrunk from about 90% in 2004 to just less than 80% last year. In the same time, the share of general merchandisers such as Walmart and Costco has more than doubled. Many grocery stores, including our Uptown location and Armstrong Askey's, have created patio spaces which have proven to be popular with shoppers. Here are some examples. Part of our concept for the reinvented downtown Askey's is extended operating hours. With more prepared food options and with the coffee, wine, and beer offerings, there will be a reason for us to extend our hours. It would also be more reason to think about making the Downtown Street Party an annual event. The Downtown Askey's is currently open 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Saturday through Thursday and 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Fridays. It is likely that we would extend the hours to at least 9 p.m., possibly 10 p.m. every night of the week. It was pointed out that having Askey's open later throughout the week would help to enliven the downtown. And those are just a few photos of our street party that we had this summer. Our proposal ties in with the current streetscape research on how to revitalize downtown cores to create a vibrant, lively atmosphere. It also fits with revitalization work the City of Salmon Arm has already been doing on other streets throughout downtown. Our proposed project could also lead to an interesting collaborative project, something like the Ross Street Plaza, with different stakeholder groups, possibly including Downtown Salmon Arm, the Arts Council, and the Trail Alliance, where we could look at doing a public art installation or interactive piece. And these are two examples that I thought were really neat that don't take up much space. So the first is hammocks, and then the second is a nice seating with a cool light fixture above. Finally, our proposal fits with climate action plans that many municipalities are implementing, including planting trees, widening sidewalks to make walking and cycling more appealing, and creating event spaces and spaces for community to gather and linger. Our proposal is an opportunity for Salmon Arm to engage in a climate-friendly initiative and demonstrate its leadership in participating in climate action projects. Thank you for listening, and I'd like to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Claire, very much for your presentation. I will open it up for questions from councillors if councillors have any questions. Do that one more time. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation, Claire. So am I understanding that the city would have options in terms, you're recommending these changes to city-owned property and the city would do the work and make the plan and, okay, all right, perfect. I just needed that clarification. Thank you.
Other questions from council? Thank you very much, Claire, and thanks for sharing your dream of the downtown store. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I would invite 26th Annual Roots and Blues Festival, Dave Ganella.
Thank you for having me tonight. I am proposing a project that we've been working on for the last couple of years to bring power to a property on the south field, which is leased to the SASLA, which is the Salmon Arm and Shuswap Lake Agricultural Society, which is also known in town as the Fairground or the Fair Board individuals. This project is a project that actually we would only be activating for the time during the Roots and Blues Festival. It is to bring power in 2 phases to the south field to 5 separate service kiosks. These kiosks would be eliminating the need to rent 5 generators during the festival, and also be in place for all other events to use for the rest of the year of this site, because currently there is no power. If you're not going to be using the barns or the other storage areas that are on the fairgrounds, they have power, but the other areas on the that acreage does not. And we're finding that the cost of maintaining the generators, the cabling, the gas, all the other items that to make bring the power for the multiple stages, and also the eating areas that we have during the festival are just becoming really unsustainable. So we come to council today and request that in 2 phases we bring this project to the grounds. The first phase would bring literally from the pole by the sidewalk across the fence line. So we would have the power in the south field, but at that point, that still leaves us with all the cabling. So we would see savings on the generator aspect, but we would still have a lot of costs that would be related to all the cabling. This is something that we have the support from SASLA to go ahead with this project. Although they can't be themselves a funder to help support this project, we feel strongly on behalf of the community to bring the power to this area. We find that what's holding back this property from having other large events is its availability for its infrastructure, and making it easy for these other companies that could come in and do big events to use this space. And frankly, they're not going to come in and do what we've done, because we have more of an investment to use this property, and we're sort of a partner in this property to make sure the development is brought in. In the past, we've been instrumental in bringing in all the grass that's in the south field. We brought in the irrigation into the field. We also brought in all the trees. We've the society, Salmon Arm Folk Music Society, we tallied up that we've put in over $250,000 over the years into the infrastructure of that property to bring it up to code. On a side note of being competitive as a festival right now, the Salmon Arm Salmon Arm Roots and Blues Festival is the only festival of our size that has to rent power and bring as much power to the site as we do. Shambhala, the music fest on the island, the Vancouver Folk Festival. None of these events have to experience the cost to pull it off. Although it's a large sum, we're first ones to recognize that. We broke it into 2 phases, try to make it a little bit easier to approach this project, but I feel strongly that it will pay off dividends as an investment for other events to be activated on that property.
Thank you, David. Just before I ask for questions, could we just have David's letter, the second page of it? I think it's page 27 on our agenda. One more. Here we go. Do councillors have questions for David? Councillor Flynn?
Thank you, Your Worship, and it might be a question for you, having been, I think, our rep on both the boards involved with the Fall Fairgrounds. And thank you for your presentation, David. The first question is for you. You've got phase 1 and 2, and clearly phase 1 is very manageable, but you would still then have to rent cables and everything, or you would save the $12,000 a year?
We would save $12,000, but I'm estimating we're going to spend we would spend $6,000 just to get cabling from that spot. So we would only really see a savings in that phase of $6,000 a year.
Okay. And then the second phase clearly provides the savings long term. but is significantly more expensive.
It's more expensive, but that phase itself could be broken into smaller, we could do less kiosks on this phase if, council found that more appetizing as a, appropriate way of, funding this project. Because we're shooting for the moon in a sense of all 5 service kiosks. We could look at a variation of less kiosks to make it a little bit less expensive. But the thing about is when you rent all this equipment, when you bring all the labor, it's always tends to be less or more efficient financially to do it all at once. Just for the fact that, we would have to have the digger there, even to bring the power over the fence, we'd still have to have the same piece of equipment and quite potentially only rent it for 3 more days versus going back and having to have it for, a more extended period of time for a charge.
Okay, I may suggest that you try to break down phase 2 a bit more, but I'm not gonna ask you to do that now. I
Yeah,
wait
of
to hear
course.
what others
Yes.
have to say, or as we get into the budget process. And my other question, I don't know if you can answer it or your worship, with this electrical access, is there any potential for the Fall Fair to save on their, or SASLA to save on their event annually with regards to rides and things like that? Is there any potential savings for another event?
Yeah, I don't really know the answer to that question. I do know that, as David has suggested, events that are not able to come to the fairgrounds would be able to come with this service.
I could answer some more about how it would affect the fair. Well, they have a rental contract with the amusement park company. That would be part of the next negotiations. They've already negotiated, I think, for a certain term, so that's already been set. But the next time they come around, they can say, well, instead of using your own power, because these companies do bring generators, they would be able to come in, and they're probably looking at ways of reducing the amount of fuel they have to carry from town to town. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for David? Councillor Lavery.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Harrison. Thanks, David, for the presentation. I'd echo Councillor Flynn's suggestion. I'd be quite interested, and we all know how this process works, but
Yeah,
certainly
of
the phasing of phase 2, some sort of, I don't want to use the word compromise, but just some.
I wouldn't see it as a compromise at all. I think there's also an opportunity that's not detailed here, is that once we have, if I had a commitment from the city, I could also go to looking at getting in-kind donations to reduce this amount as well. I didn't want to put that commitment in here because I find it easier to find those kind of supports when they know the project is actually happening, instead of just something we're just all kind of esoterically talking about. So.
Yeah, I get that, great, but that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Certainly that part, and I guess the question I have is that from your correspondence, you're spending about $12,000 per annum on power now.
And that's on the conservative side, quite honest. I didn't really tabulate what the company that we work with, who's our electrical liaison, puts in a lot of time that is donated. If we had to pay for their time, it's probably another 12 grand. That would probably double. But we're fortunate that we have community support. So, yes.
And I think that's appreciated across the board.
Oh,
for
absolutely,
those
yes.
contributions. Would Roots and Blues be looking at, if we're talking of a phase-in scenario, of that $12,000 going towards capital as well for the next 2 or 3 years?
Probably towards performer fees. That's where it would probably go to, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship, and through you, thanks, Dave, for the presentation. Have you had an opportunity to, from the diesel generator perspective, calculate the savings in greenhouse gas emissions? Because I think that'd be an interesting
It could be
piece of it
calculated. I
too.
mean, it'd be quite, we spend about $3,500 in just fuel for the weekend for those 5 generators.
Yeah.
So there is a tonnage connected to that.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks.
Would you want that number?
I think it would add value to also measure the environmental cost of repeated use of diesel generators.
Councillor Lassen.
Yeah, this is just a curveball for staff. Would this, and Director of Development Services, because he does all of our greenhouse and gas calculations, would this, something like this project fall under any of our CARE grants, anything like that? It could. Okay. Sorry.
Sorry,
That was-
it could.
That was a tough question with an appropriate answer. But the main cost on this is really the service kiosks and the transformers that that would have to be purchased for the site. Like the in-kind stuff that you talk about, the dredging and everything like that, the trenching.
Yeah, the material construction
but-
costs.
but
But even the
it's-
service kiosks, we would go to like companies that are in industrial park, Valid, Adams Industries. Those would be the first, we would be contacting them to see if they could play a role in this project as well.
Okay, and we committed $10,000 to this last year. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, David. I just follow up on Councillor Eliason's question. So the 10,000 from last year for phase one, would that leave $11,285 for phase one? Do I understand
It would,
that right?
yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation.
Yeah, thank all of you for listening to us.
Okay, downtown Salmon Arm, Lindsay Wong. And Lindsay, you have two items to talk to us about: downtown lighting at Christmas and request for funding for downtown community cleanup. Welcome.
Yes, I do. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I want to say congratulations from downtown Salmon Arm, from staff and the Board of Directors. So happy to be here tonight for my first inaugural, presentation to this group. So the first letter I will speak to is one that I've approached Council before, which is about the request for funding for the downtown community cleanup. So there is a letter attached, and we have hosted the Ask Youth Community Cleanup Day in April for the last, this will be coming up to our 4th year. So last year we saw many participants come out and during the week for that day, to sweep and pick up garbage, clean garbage cans, remove debris, and then enjoy barbecue lunch sponsored by Ask Youth. So an event such as this involve people from all different sectors of the community. We've had businesses, community leaders, the youth, children, and individuals work all together to tidy the downtown core and demonstrate civic pride. We'd like to continue this event in the spring of 2019, and with the support of the City of Salmon Arm, we are requesting $500 be allocated for this event from the city's annual operating budget. So in previous years, we have been accepted under the council initiative, but I'm just requesting that this be put under the budget. So is there any questions at this time?
Any questions on that piece by council? Okay, I think we understand.
And thank you very much for that. And the second letter I'm going to be speaking about is about the downtown lighting at Christmas. It is a hydro bill that we have been receiving for many, many years, and it is becomes once every 2 years. And basically it pays for the Christmas lighting that we do downtown. So when I first started with the organization, we were using high energy bulbs, and we have since replaced them all. And so I feel that over the years, it's almost like somewhat of a bit of a penalty to be paying for Christmas lighting. So we've been paying for the Christmas decorations, such as the banners downtown. We've done pole wrapping. We've hung and created pole decorations for the downtown core. But that is for everyone to enjoy. It's certainly the community benefits from this. Tourists and locals, do benefit from the beautiful decorations. So what I'm requesting is an exemption for this. So last budget for 2017-2018, we received an invoice for an amount of $1,720, and I have attached that document. And it's a substantial amount for downtown Salmon Arm, so that's about an average of $900 to $1,000 a year that we pay for lighting. And we actually don't know what that number is until we actually do receive the invoice. So. And I'm not really sure how it does get broken down. Our bill is very general, and it just has an amount, and it doesn't really, state time or anything like that. I'm not really sure how hydro is broken down for the city, but it certainly doesn't give me any indication of how the wattage is being used or how the power is being used. So I have come twice now to the city for this request, for this exemption on the hydro bill. So at this stage, I am looking for an exemption, and this is to not for this one that has just previously been paid, but for the future years. And I just want to actually mention that our contract renewal is coming up with the city next year, and we'll be working on that, and that may also be a good time to address this.
Thank you
Are
very
there
much.
any questions on that one?
Thank you, Lindsay. Do councillors have any questions on the hydro bill piece? Seeing none, thank you very much. Thanks, Lindsay, for coming and speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item is Jerry Emmel, request for sidewalk extension from 1881 10th Street Southwest to Foothill Road. Is Jerry here? Jerry, it wouldn't be the same without having you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I've been here. I've been here before about this, almost the same thing. Anyway, good evening, Mayor Harrison and councillors. I'm speaking on behalf of a number of people in the Foothills area. There's a number of them here in the gallery tonight. Thanks to the City of Salmon Arm for what was done this year on 10th Street, completing part of the sidewalk from 10th on 10th up to the Hopkins Meadows. And so we only have one more area to finish, and that I find is an important one. I'm sure all the councillors are familiar with 10th Street and all the different developments that are going on there. Okay, so the only area that we're considering now is finishing it from 1881 up to Foothill Road. And a lot of, I use that, the sidewalk every day myself, and a lot of people do because it's close to Piccadilly Mall, and so there are a lot of children, school-aged children, and seniors, and everyday people that use that every day. And coming up with winter now, we had a harsh winter last year, and that stretch, especially that last stretch that isn't finished, there were no sidewalks at all, and no place for people to walk. And the snow was pushed off to the side, and we had to walk on the travel portion of the road. And especially in the morning, I usually was out there early in the morning with the school kids out there, and the bus stop is right up at Foothill Road, right at the end of 10th Street. And a number of kids have to walk up 10th Street early in the morning before it's even fully light out. And they have to, on winter days especially, they have to walk on the travel portion of the road because there's nothing. It's the road and a snowbank, and that's it. It's not a big stretch. I think we're only talking about, 0.1 to 0.2 of a kilometer that's left to do. I didn't actually measure it. There are actually setbacks right now for that remaining. I've looked, and the houses and the sidewalks are all already set back. So I think the cost would be a lot less than having to either purchase the land or get hydro and everything moved for there. So that's pretty much it. I think it is an important stretch, and the next thing after that, which I don't think is the city's responsibility, would be to get a crosswalk actually where the bus stops there. There's no crosswalk at all on Foothill Road for those kids to go across. Most of the parents come, and the younger ones, and they take them across. So finishing that last stretch would be very good. That's all I have to say on it. Any questions?
Thanks very much, Jerry, and we do know that's a changing area on 10th for sure.
Right.
Councillor Eliason.
Good to see you again.
Yes. Yeah, I've been here for quite a few years, and the progress is good though, because when I came here, first of all, I think we only had
There was only the stretch in 10th
Yeah,
and 10th.
and now we're
And and I think our conversation is like, no, give it some time. There's going to be development that's going to save us money here at the table.
Yes.
When that develops.
And that has worked out, except that last stretch, I don't think
Except for
you're
the
gonna
last stretch.
Yeah, the last, there's no development, I don't think, there's houses, residential houses in there, so.
I have sort of because I used to run and live in that area. Is there a trail or a connector from where you exit the ridge across the street down through the subdivision to?
There is, but that comes out, and there's still quite a distance.
There's still a distance.
There's still a distance,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
You can go down, I think is it 12th
Is it 12th there?
Avenue?
Yeah, to the
and
corner,
come out,
yeah.
but there's still
the gap until
there's still a gap in
okay.
there. It's not as big of a gap, and a lot of people, I know I use that sometimes, but the school kids
Yeah.
can't use that to get to the bus that they on 10th and Foothill.
Okay. Well, thank you very much,
Yeah.
and thanks for coming back every year after year.
You bet. Any other?
So we'll hopefully fix it for you.
Yep, thank you.
Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Worship. And it's not really a question for Jerry, but I think the Director of Engineering and Public Works knows what I'd like to see on the screen. So we've got so many people here. Do you have any of your maps available?
Sorry, Your Worship, we haven't any maps available.
Okay, darn, I like maps so much. Okay, I will have to have a look at a map and drive by there and understand this a little better, but I agree with Councillor Lyles, and thank you for your persistence, and I don't think we're gonna see development where you're talking about. Perhaps staff has an approximate cost if the land is already put aside for 0.1 to 0.2 kilometers of sidewalk?
Yeah, Your Worship, we are working on those costs right now. We've received a lot of specific referrals that we're doing cost estimates for, and you'll see that at budget time.
Okay. And then the last question is related to the crosswalk. Would that be best to be referred to traffic and safety, or does staff know that there's an issue with a lot of kids crossing foothills at that spot?
Typically, we don't put crosswalks in if we don't have sidewalks. That's the issue.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Appreciate your input.
Okay, thank you. And Kevin, if you didn't want to phone me, I'd come out and help you out there.
I go by there a bit, but I want to look at where we've
Yes, for sure.
gotten to.
Appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. And just before I call the next presenter, just so presenters know, what we do with the input is we take your input and they go into a section called specific referrals in the budget with a budget cost beside them. And at budget day, council considers each of those presentations that you have made, because then we have the knowledge. So that's how that works. So I don't want you to think, oh, I came here, I spoke, and then that was it. There is a second phase, and the public meeting you are welcome to. It is it January 7th? January 7th. It's all day, so if you're looking for something to do on January 7th, probably the specific referrals will be in the afternoon. All right. Request for handicap doors at Recreation Center and Shaw Center, safety ladder in the children's pool, Patrick Riley. I'm not sure Patrick's here. Patrick did come and speak to council previously, and we do have his written submission, so we'll make sure that goes into specific referrals with a cost for us. Do councillors have any questions about that item? Okay, we'll move on then. Number 9, Steve Corey, request for installation of 6.0 meter driveway letdown at 1870 Okanagan. Steve here? Okay, we'll do the same with that and have a cost estimate for council at budget time. Marina McTavish, request for public transit service expansion and changes to service hours. Is Marina present? Great, welcome Marina, nice to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Okay, I'm a short person, so let's pull that down. All right. Okay, it's simple what I've got up there. Just a request that the transit system be developed. There was a Salmon Arm Council presentation. This is way back May 23rd, 2017, which outlined that course of action. And I did get the original information online, but this presentation itself, it was presented to council. I don't know what happened to it from there, just because it was very difficult to find the information online, basically. So I know that the presentation was made. I know that some of this was approved, but nothing really happened from there. So my thoughts are, here we have, yeah, the cost of the vehicle maintenance. People cannot always afford to maintain a vehicle. Cost of gas is going up, the carbon footprint, etc. So I think that kind of lends a little bit of weight to the idea of developing the transit service. And I don't know if anybody here is aware, I use the bus. I don't have a vehicle. I don't have a, well, I sort of have a driver's license. I'm working on it. But as it stands, we do not have any service at all on Sundays. So some of the malls, actually all of the malls around the city are open on Sundays, but there's no bus to get to that. And I know that some of the employers do have difficulty in retaining, well, attracting and then retaining employees, because a lot of the employees also, if they're students, they don't have access to vehicles. They can't get there, they can't get home. Also, people who are shopping. This whole town is developing, like Claire asked you, wonderful. I know that if you have this bus system developed, you will probably have to rearrange where everything is. I mean, it's not something that you can say, okay, we're going to have more buses. No, I'm not sticking exactly to the program here because there's so much to it. People want to develop, like Askew's, they want to develop that, and having this new sidewalk put in, things like that. We are growing. I was only moved here like 2 years ago, so I'm sort of getting into this slowly. Okay, so yeah, many people don't drive for various reasons, and yeah, they need accommodation. Students need to get to school, and this is kind of a personal story. Okay, there was one morning, it was a Tuesday, and it was right after Labor Day weekend, and I wanted to go to school, or sorry, to work, and I was standing at the bus stop, and there was this other young man, and basically the bus stopped and said, there's only room for one person. So it was a choice, me going to work, that I need to open up, or this young man goes to school. And that shouldn't be a decision that we have to make looking at each other at a bus stop saying, well, who goes? But anyway, he basically said, go ahead. And so yeah, 2 other people left at their stops along the way because the bus was full. And I've talked about the shopping on Sundays. We need that. Yeah, I went over employers such as Winners, Walmart, Santinoka. All of these need to have access to people who don't have cars. And okay, yeah, this presentation, what I sort of built this on is this presentation on May 23rd, 2017. And so here are some of the aspects of it that they presented. Okay, yeah, topics included an overview of the transit system with riderships, public outreach results, and unfortunately, I found this presentation number, but I didn't find any information as to how they arrived at the numbers, like what their public outreach was. I don't know what kind of age ranges they looked for, demographics, I don't know anything of that. I'll look it up, I'll find it. And the review was based on the following information. Yeah, the 8-route system, annual ridership about 110,000. And Route 1 was the most popular, so was Route 5. And there was a high level of satisfaction with the service. And what else? Sorry, I didn't use the clicker. Do you really want me to?
No, you're doing fine.
Okay, well, recommendations were made for the system improvements with service changes possible. That included the minor changes to routing on Route 5, and for those who are not familiar with that, it's a shopper's shuttle. It goes from downtown, makes its way through Santinoka, then Piccadilly, then to Walmart, and comes back to downtown area. So that was proposed in this recommendation. And the Sunday service was proposed, evening service was proposed, service to Salmon Industrial Park was proposed for expansion, and additional trip to another route, Salmon Enderby Run expansion. And one other note that I did find, and I wish I had actually put in the website address, got all that information for a reference. But essentially, it said that Enderby had expressed interest in sharing, cost sharing, and a development plan sharing with the city of Salmon Arm. So I don't know if that was ever developed, if the city of Salmon Arm ever continued to communicate with Enderby or not, but that's something that can be looked at. Okay, infrastructure, other improvements were recommended at that time, like the Centinoka Mall, shelter and bench, that has been put in. More fair product selling outlets, improved marketing initiatives, extended routes to industrial park. And some of these things didn't happen, like the extensions to the industrial park and the evening routes. It ends at 6 p.m. Yeah, I guess I'm assuming too that everybody knows. No, the daily routes start roughly around 7 a.m., go to 6 p.m. Realistically, it should go beyond that. Okay, so aside from all of that, the specific next steps that were recommended in this report, the council approved the report. What was it? Memorandum of understanding, for planning work to refine the service options, letter report on costs and fleet association with expansion, public consultation on one more time. Public consultation on options, and the implementation for that timeline of May 23rd, 2017 was implementation of new service by September 2018. So that didn't happen. So what I'm looking for is for council to consider kickstarting that again, restarting based on this initial presentation, some of the recommendations that were there, and just continue on with developing the transit service. Actually, I do have a petition that I got 67 signatures, and that's not very much, but it was a start. And I think it's definitely, it's as we're growing. I think I've got stats here, I used to anyway, 17,000 people in 2016, and yeah, an estimated population today of about 18,100 and some. So it's growing. New developments are all over the place. There are some areas of the city that receive no service at all, and one of them I think is northeast area all the way up to Raven Hill. That's a whole area of the city that gets no service. And we need better than that. And also there's seasonal things that go on, such as Haney's and the water park. There's other things like that that are seasonal. And yeah, as has been pointed out with the snowmobiling, this is something that all of it's developing. The city is developing. Okay.
You have 1 minute.
I'll give it. Okay, almost. Yeah, I've been the worst so far. But yeah, basically you can develop areas that need improvement. There are different areas of the city that need it, that don't get no service at all whatsoever. There are seasonal things that are going on that you could develop some kind of sorry, I'm kind of running out of steam now, 9 minutes. But yeah, there's other things that are going on seasonally that could benefit from bus service, like even if it's just like 2 runs a day, 4 runs a day to get people out there, like Haney's, and bring them back. Because sometimes people go out for a full day. Anyway, things like that. So yeah, please, I hope you will revisit this entire transit issue, because we need transit development.
Thank you very much, Marina, and thank you for coming to Salmon Arm and being an involved citizen. If you would like to pass your petition on to the Chief Administrative Officer, he'll make sure that we get copies of it.
Awesome, thank you.
I'll see if there's any questions from council.
Okay, you bet, thanks.
Council, do you have any questions? Councillor Lavery.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Cooper. Mayor Cooper. Oh, man. Your worship.
Lavery.
Or Councillor Jameson, perhaps, sitting in the chair here. Thank you for your presentation. I think that we do need to look at this, but I just want to point out that we look at this very closely every year. What were referred to as recommendations were recommended options to proceed. For the gallery here, the average ride costs about $12, a little over $12 per ride. Public transportation is subsidized. I have no problem with that. But the issue isn't solely demand. It's a combination of demand and ability to pay. Personally, I think that we need, again, to look at this, as you're saying, but it is a balancing act of ability to pay, and there are competing demands for each of those options that you're describing here. So I want to thank you for it's timely as we head into the budget process, but it's not something that was we got a report 2 or 3 years ago and then we've shelved. Each and every year at budget time, we look at this as closely and as responsibly as we can, and we will do that again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Any other questions for our presenter? Hearing none, thank you very much, Marina.
Okay, thank you for
Appreciate it.
having me. I was long-winded, but it's all good, thank you.
Our next presenter, Mary Lou McCausland, request for improvements at and around the Shuswap Regional Airport, performing and visual arts facilities, public transit, and emergency preparedness. Mary Lou, welcome. You have to fit that in 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. And Your Worship and councillors, I like to commend you for doing this, because you put yourself right on the spot with all these people and their competing demands. I am a concerned citizen. I've chosen Salmon Arm to live for all the beauty and the things that everybody else who comes to the city choose. But there are some things I'd like to see change. And being a thinker and having had some experience in certain areas, I'm today sharing it with you, what I've picked up, and hopefully that will help you in terms of the areas of the issues that I've been looking at. I had occasion in Surrey to represent the Board of Trade at an IPREM conference. IPREM is the Integrated Provincial Regional Emergency Management program there. And they brought all the service providers, and for some unknowing reason, they decided to bring in business. And so I went in to represent business on that occasion. So now I look at everything that I see in every city in terms of what I learned about disaster, the potential for it, its cost, and possible mitigation. So that's where I'm coming from today with the importance of budgeting adequately for emergency preparedness. And I noticed, Your Worship, you picked up on something like that during your campaign because you referenced it. So this must be also dear to your heart in some way. But with climate change, risks of flooding, wildfires, but even the increased traffic on the railway, the traffic on our highways, and we've got a double situation going on down in downtown Salmon Arm. The potential for a disaster is inevitable. I mean, I'm sure there's an algorithm that the physicists have, and I think I've heard it at one point. It will happen. But are we ready for it? And that's what I would like to ask you. Do we know how many trains carry bitumen and how many cars are on it? Do we have a plan if bitumen is spilled? If we have a chlorine spill in the downtown core, do we have a way of evacuating people quickly? And one of the things that I learned from my IPREM experience is how that all the different aspects that connect up in disaster preparedness is quite often territorial and insular. So people work very, very hard in their area and they're very dedicated about it, but they're not talking, well, the fire's not talking sometimes to ambulance, it's not talking to police, that's not talking to the downtown business association. And you say, why are they in there? Well, they have resources. They need to have a telephone tree for a call out if something goes on. They need to help each other get out of the situation if they need to. And they need to have a plan for recovery. And one of the important things that we learn for something like Christchurch or the fires in Alberta is that you need to have the plan for recovery. And that's really an important part for the city to look at. Because how do we get our city up and running? And you may want to look at some of your best case scenarios across the country and around the world on this. Insurance companies will not pay insurance to business until everything is safe. The people in Christchurch could not get their insurance money. And that was 2 years later after when we spoke to them when I was doing this project in Surrey. So expecting insurance companies to come in and bail the businesses out, they may not do that fast. So if you want Askew's Food up and running, then we got to make sure that Askew's Foods has a way to do it quickly, because food is important, or any of your transportation system, or anything like that. So I want to bring this to your attention to get you thinking about it. And that does me a segue into a pet project of mine right now, and it's called the airport. Right, Chad? Yes, I know you were on the committee for that for a while, weren't you? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd like to chastise you for letting that airport go. There's a couple of things that really disturbed me this summer, and one was the fact that the trees had not been trimmed so you could have night landings, and that you lost the ability to do with that with Transport Canada. Well, medevac lands there 2 to 3 times a day sometimes in the summer, and some of that's night landing. Do you know how many people die on the way to hospital? And when you cut off services like that, maybe not intentionally, it wasn't thought about, but it can have a dire consequences in people's life. But also, this is the Salmon Arm Airport. This is not a Shuswap airport. This is the city's airport. It's an asset. And in the case of a disaster, that airport can be very critical. Your RAP attack works out of there. You want to make sure that they have an airport that is functioning well and can support what they do. But not only that, somewhere in our future, we may want to have that airport do some commuting. And I think I talked to you about that, how something like the Helijet could very well be a perfect commuter situation if they come in once a day and move people commercially. If you look at some of the other airports, including Revelstokes or Boundary Bays, they're small community airports, but they have turned it into a commercial success. Particularly Boundary Bay. They have a really high standard restaurant down there. People go there. It's a place that is busier than just the Fly Club that operates out of some of these places. So again, it's something I want to bring to your attention. I want you to look at it. Really think about, in your next 4 years, what do we want to do with this airport? If we're not going to keep it, yeah, by all means, expand your landfill. But if you expand that landfill, you're going to cut off your airport again. So I know that went to first reading with the Columbia Shuswap Regional District and the landfill. And you better also watch your toxins from that, because you got a berry farm using an underground water system. So there's a little sidebar on that one. So that does my little rant on disaster and the airport. The other thing I picked up by living in this city, and this is dear to my heart because theater is in my background very strongly, and I moved to Salmon Arm because of its arts and culture. And little did I know that the arts and culture stand on their own, nonprofit to nonprofit, and the hard work of people, because the city puts in about 1% of the budget in culture and not necessarily always in the arts part. I really would like you to look at that too. Now, I know competing interests, which is the most important one, and you're going to have to balance that out, and I accept that. But wouldn't it be great with your recreation center, which was what was supposed to have been done, is it about 20 years ago that Saskia Recreation Center was built? Is it that long? Okay. The promise was to have an arts center and a recreation center. And the arts center seemed to get cut out. So what you've got is a gymnasium with a stage which is not functional for performances. You don't have the correct lighting or sound or wings to move sets in and out or have people stand getting ready to go on stage or anything like that. And I know that this has been one of the things that people have been complaining about for the last couple of years, is having an arts center. How about a private-public partnership on this? I saw a wonderful design from Barrison for the city of Surrey that coupled a whole arts and cultural center with some commercial enterprises, including a hotel, which gave them a conference center along with it. I mean, that's a potential that could be pursued, and maybe something you could refer to economic development to take a look at to see if that is a good thing to do. You will then be able to have road shows come in if you have a large enough facility, and you'll just give life to your arts community like you've never done before. And on that note, I shall finish. Excuse the pun.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Councillors, any questions for Mary Lou on her topics? Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Mary Lou, I think it might be very valuable for you to maybe go to the CSRD and sit down with the head of the Shuswap Emergency Management Program. It used to be called that. It's now called the Shuswap Emergency Program, SEP. We are the largest funder of that. We participate in that, and it's a provincial initiative that is mandated. And in I don't remember the year, 96, 97? When was our fire?
1998.
We had the largest non-wartime evacuation handled by our Shuswap Emergency Program in an amazing manner. And police, fire, everybody worked together. Since then, we've had 2 or 3 mock disasters put on by them and got hospitals, police, fire, city staff, everybody else involved. So I think, I hear what you're saying. I agree it's extremely important, but the fact is we've spent significant dollars on it. There's been significant time spent on it, significant energy and significant staff at both CSRD and here. You could probably start by meeting with our Director of Engineering and Public Works, who is one of our key representatives working with the CSRD. So I'm not saying what you've said is not valid input, but I think it might be very worthwhile for you to understand what's been done, what is done every year, and how hard the Shuswap Emergency Program works regionally to make sure we're prepared for emergencies. And I personally have been involved in 2 of the mock practices over there. There hasn't been any for about 5 years, or perhaps more, but they have practiced. There are all the systems in place that you've talked about. So thank you for that presentation. If you're asking us to maybe put more money into that program, then that's a different issue, but the program exists. Just like a long-term plan for the airport that was developed exists and has had a bunch of time spent on it. So, and I can't speak to 20 or 30 years ago with regards to who promised who a performing arts center, but we just recently had 2,300 people in our community and the region complete a questionnaire about the pool, performing arts, and everything else. So we do have very recent research on how important a performing arts might be for the community. So I felt like, same as the issue with transit, we have competing demands, but a lot of the things you've talked about are being dealt with, have been dealt with, and are in the works. And it's a matter of the community providing the input, especially in the 2,300 people to the Arts Center. So thank you for your presentation, but I really think it would be worth your time to meet with the people at the CSRD about the emergency program.
So it's 5 years ago is your last practice?
Councillor Lindgren, please.
Sorry.
You have a question?
No, just a comment. I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation. And thank you for bringing to our attention the piece about recovery after a disaster. I grew up in Fort McMurray, and I have friends there that are still now not able to open their businesses because they have not been able to collect their insurance money yet. And it's been, I guess, 2 years now. So it's something that I think that we don't really think about how we're going to get things back up and running. And I just want to thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you, Mary Lou, and we do appreciate you coming and taking the time and speaking with us. Thank you very much.
Didn't sound like it. I
Our next
one
presenter
statement,
is Sandra Konasek, request
Just-
for repairs to the wharf.
Okay, could I just make one statement?
Mary Lou, you've had your 10 minutes, and so if you'd like to speak privately to one of the councillors, that will be fine. But we have a number of
okay.
other presenters who want to present this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Sandra Konasek, and I'm the president of the Shuswap Grey Grebes Paddling Society. We're a 55-plus recreational dragon boat team here in Salmon Arm. We're one of 4 teams that currently paddle out of the Marine Park Wharf. Some of my entourage tonight are from some of the other teams in town, and Stacy is representing SARP. I'd like to talk a little bit about the usage of the part of the dock that we're talking about tonight. We moor our dragon boat on the small gated dock on the right-hand side of the marina with 2 other dragon boats. One dragon boat's owned by SARP, and 2 teams paddle off of that boat. The second boat's owned by Friends Abreast, of which I believe there's some representation in the audience tonight. And the third boat is owned by us, the Grey Grebes. 4 teams in total paddle twice a week from this little part of the dock, from approximately late April until mid-September, depending on water level, weather conditions, whatever. So basically it boils down to 8 times a week, approximately 24 people are on this dock surface, loading into their and out of their dragon boat. Again, I said at the beginning, my particular team, we're a 55-plus team. The oldest woman on my team is 91. And I just aspire to be like her if I get to be 91. Also, each of the teams down there and the organizations behind them have done dragon boat education and awareness in the communities by taking out school children and the local Bible camp. We've also had other things run from that wharf. Most recently, I can remember one of the things I participated in was we had a steering clinic with the new refurbished wooden boats, which was really cool. I very much enjoyed it. But those are just some of the activities and the type of usage that comes from that area. And I'm leaving, probably saving the one that gets the most traffic to last is the annual Dragon Boat Festival, of which Jean in the audience and Stacy beside me are part of the organizing committee for that. And so if you have any questions about that, I'll defer them to them. And the festival in 2019 is June 22nd? That is correct, yeah. June 22nd. So it'll be coming up quickly after the winter. The issue, and the reason why we're here tonight, is really the condition of the dock and the safety of it. For the last few years, the city has been diligently going and doing a surface check and checking any of the boards that look like they're deterring or a safety hazard on top. And that's been working well for a few years, and we very much appreciate it. We appreciate the fact that we can moor our dragon boats there. But it is becoming evident, or did become evident this year, that that's not working any longer. Some of the good boards, the boards that are looking good on top, now when you step on them, you sink right down in. And on my boat alone, we've had a few near misses. No one's had to go to the doctor's office or the hospital as a result of it. But we're here tonight to mitigate that. We don't want to have that happen. So that's really it. The dragon boat community really thinks of safety first, and that's why we're really here tonight. I recently learned that in 2016, SARP made some kind of a proposal to the mayor and council, and Stacy was given a copy of it, and I just got a copy of it tonight. I don't know anything about what was going on there. I just realized that I'm not the first person to stand up here having a kick at the can. So there is a little bit of history here on this, and I just hope that we can work together on a solution, yeah, and so that we can have a safe platform down there to enjoy the beautiful Shuswap.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I really appreciate you coming forward and bringing it to our attention.
I was just going to add, back in 2016, when we did approach council about improvements, there was grant talk about, at the time of the Canada 150 grants that didn't come through.
Right.
But being Shuswap Rowing and Paddling Club is a nonprofit, and if there are grants available, we'd certainly be keen to look at anything that would be, you know, helpful towards this. The quote at the time in 2016 was for $101,000 for the like a poly.
Yeah, it's a plastic.
Plastic type of work. So that's all I wanted to add.
Okay, well, that's good information for us. Do councillors have any questions? Hey, thank you very much for coming and bringing it to our attention. We appreciate it.
Thank you for hearing us.
Okay, Jarvis Weiss, Seniors Fifth Avenue Center. Welcome, Jarvis.
It's good to be here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Your Worship. I haven't said that very often. Council members and members of the city staff. It's a pleasure to be able to speak about the Seniors Fifth Avenue Activity Center needs. I see that I'm number 13 on the list, and this is the 13th, so maybe that's doubly lucky or not. We'll see as time goes. What I wanted to speak to you is my letter of September 19th, where we were asking for council's help to provide safer street parking on that portion of Fifth Avenue that runs along front of the Fifth Avenue Seniors Activity Center. Specifically, we're asking that the boulevard be partially removed, the road widened, that is indented, to create additional roadway space for safer parking in front of the center. Why is this important? Well, in the worst case scenario, it'll save lives and serious injury. Safety is the real reason, the big issue. A recent survey, just completed last week, of our members identified parking still as the #1 concern at our center. A quote from one of the members said, "Parking is very dangerous in front of our center. When our parking lot is getting full, people will parallel park on Fifth Avenue. And when vehicles are traveling east to west on that avenue, they pass the parked cars, they're there, and they frequently cross over the center line just to avoid anybody opening their door to get out. So exiting and entering can be a hazard, and particularly for elderly people. I don't know what the average age of our members are, but I would hazard a guess that it's somewhere around the 77 mark, I would think. And this especially in winter and especially at night. This avenue has become a busier traffic corridor as in more recent years, and it's expected only to get busier as residential development in outlying areas continues. When the center was built in 2002, we had approximately 250 members. Today we have 780 annually paid up members. Now, they don't always use the center at once, but there are, of course, times, Fridays is one example, especially events and certain rentals, where there is great pressure on the parking, and the surrounding streets, as well as on Fifth Avenue in front, are quite clogged. Our membership has tripled in the past 16 years, and it continues to rise. Obviously, that continues to put increased pressure on parking. In 2017, our center had, as part of its rentals revenue, 46 single event rentals, plus 9 groups, in addition to that, that rented from weekly to monthly. So public use of the seniors center continues to increase. And of course, it continues to put pressure on parking. We've done our best to provide parking at the center. I believe when the center was built that we received a variance from the city to have less parking than was zoned for. I think our total now will be 49 spaces, because in 2007, after the center was built in 2002, we purchased some adjoining land that was available, and we developed this year a back parking lot and extended the front parking lot to provide an additional lucky 13 spaces. So we feel that we've done all we can. We have no more room. There's no place to expand. The only possibility for us is to buy existing residential properties that border on this, and that's not something we can do without partnerships. So there we have it. We have a need for safer parking. Why? We don't want anybody to get killed. The membership has increased dramatically since 2002. Public use of the center is probably much higher than you would expect. And the increased busyness of the Fifth Avenue corridor just complicates that. The fact that the senior center is completely run by volunteers and is funded by its volunteers through rentals, memberships, its incredible food services, and its activity fees. We are a pretty industrious organization. In the last few years, we've completely replaced the roof, the flooring. We've upgraded all the lighting to LED. We have a huge storage facility, a C-SPAN trailer tacked onto the back of our auditorium and entered through there. And we've done major upgrades and modifications to our kitchen. But this is something we can't do on our own. It seems like a small matter to take a piece of chunk of grass out and put in some more asphalt and indent the parking to give us some better safety. I know that's costly, but it's something that I think sooner or later we'll hear about in an unfortunate way. So that's, I think, all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jarvis. Appreciate your presentation. Do councillors have any questions?
Just for the council of 2002.
Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. You've done an awful lot on your own: roof, the floor, lighting, trailer storage, kitchen, provided yourself some more parking. Was there a consideration, if council puts this in the budget, for a cost sharing? Do you have funds to partner in this? You mentioned partnership in your presentation.
Right. It would be a consideration. It could be a consideration. While we have funds in the bank, we're pretty fortunate that we have some key volunteers that virtually work 80 to 100% of the time. If we ever had to replace some of those key volunteers, within a couple of years, our surpluses would be exhausted. So it is a possibility, but it's a cautious possibility.
So you've got surpluses, but they're there for operating just in case.
Yes.
Long term.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other, of course, longer term is capital building projects. If we ever got to the point where we're looking at expanding parking even more or combining seniors services in the community, there's money there to help that, hopefully.
And then I think this question is for staff. I think back in September we saw kind of a mock of what they were looking at. Have we priced this at all?
Your Worship, we'll have prices for the budget.
For the budget. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Jarvis, and I know it's a very successful and busy place, so this is part of what goes with success, having to expand the parking. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there is others in the gallery who have not had an opportunity to come forward and would like to, there's 4 seats in the front there. If one comes forward and anyone else that wants to go after them sits on those seats, we'll make it as quick as we can. So maybe we'll start with Mark here, and then any others, if you don't mind coming forward to those seats, that would be fantastic.
Sure, everyone's very happy there's a 14th person speaking. So we regretfully didn't get on the agenda, but we did have a letter from Salmon Arm Minor Baseball to read to mayor and councilors that was sent in August. I'm Mark Delleman, and this is Scott Stewart. You guys have probably seen Scott in chamber before, provincial winning coach here in Salmon Arm Minor Baseball. I just wanted to give you guys an overview here of what's going on in minor baseball. We're a growing association of 270 players registered in 2018 from the ages of 5 to 15. 2017, we had 201 players registered. To 2015, 159. So that's 70% growth from 2015 to today. It's a number we're very proud of, and we're seeing kids come back to baseball in town. We're expecting and planning for even more growth next season. Midget team coming back, and potentially a third bantam team, and a growing youth coming up. Many dedicated coaches and parent volunteers. We're 2 of them within the association. There's many more. We had our mosquito team last year, or 2 seasons ago, win AA provincial banner, as well as a Pee Wee team win a banner this year. We have our tadpole, which are 9U, a very large group of young baseball players playing at a AAA level, playing teams like Kamloops and beating them, larger associations. So we have a talented group coming up. There's challenges with growth that we face. So we do lease Elks Park. So that's a private park we lease. We have 2 fields there that 73% of our kids registered play on. So Blackburn and Klahani are 2 city fields we use. Elks does house most of the kids in the association. We no longer have a batting cage, as Elks has removed that cage for their reasons. Klahani, we have our Pee Wee level kids, our U13s. We had 4 Pee Wee teams playing there. That's 46 kids. And Blackburn was host to our 2 bantam teams. One was a single season, so they traveled to the coast and played coastal teams. So we have teams. We're a small community, but we're playing larger communities and we're having success. I guess what we're asking for is consideration in the future for fields, partnership with us, in just coming up with ideas on how we can grow our fields. We can have better fields to host events like provincials. We have teams that would win those or be in those events yearly, and we could bring money to the city through hotels, restaurants, and house 12 teams, just like we see in other minor sports such as hockey. We also believe that if we want to stay at this level consistently, we need a facility like a batting cage. And we believe not only minor sports would use something like that. I think slow pitch, I think there's many people who still play slow pitch well into their later years and could use a facility like that in town. So, and it isn't just us asking the city for, okay, can you pony up, this money for it? I think minor sport, like minor baseball, has money we could, like we have a gaming grant and we have other grants we've applied for. We could definitely partner on something like that. So the ask is for partnership for the city to partner with minor ball, and for us to just continue to have a conversation about that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Mark, and sorry if we somehow missed putting you on the agenda.
Oh no, I missed it. I was probably at the rink coaching hockey.
Okay, somebody had to be number 14.
Yeah.
So, questions from council? I'm wondering, fellas, do you have an idea where a batting cage could go? Where would it be the best spot for your use?
Probably we would think that Klahani would be a good spot, to be honest. We did explore the possibility of putting a batting cage back up at Elks, but we feel at this time, speaking with the city and trying to figure out a cooperative spot on one of the city properties would make more sense. We did also start looking into costs and looking into the community for support, and we have acquired some support to do it as well. So, as Mark mentioned, we're kind of early and we're kind of new to this, but we'd just like to talk more about it and have your consideration going forward.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Flynn has a question.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're specifically asking for money in this budget necessarily, except for maybe a batting cage. Just so I'm clear, so Elks Park, that handles the bulk of the younger kids? And you lease that and that's part of what you do. Klahani is for Pee-wee and U14s, and there's 2 fields that, and the work we've done improving those over the last few years, has that been in conjunction with you guys? Or have you been involved in that discussion?
No, we have not.
So what I'm hearing is the success has been amazing. The organization's growing and you're kind of just trying to make sure there's a communication on your needs combined with what the community may be able to offer, is that?
Yeah, exactly. I think you guys pointed out that there was recently the survey that was done. So, you know, hopefully there's some people that were interested in seeing something like a batting cage. I mean, the reason that we're bringing that up is because the one at Elks has been torn down and it was quite well used there. So there is no longer that facility in town at all. And so we would like to see not only it get put back up, but to be a little bit better than it was as well. Because there's
and I can't remember how long ago we did the Klahani Park Master Plan, but I maybe asked the Director of Engineering and Public Works, is there any space available there in that plan for a batting cage?
Your Worship, we didn't specifically place out an area for a batting cage, but having a batting cage in that area is perfect. Okay. And there is room for an additional ball field. And then as the gravel pit gets decommissioned, there will be more areas for expansion of ballpark there.
So who would be their best contact to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, thank you, number 14s.
Councillor Lassen.
I was number 17 when I became a baseball provincial champion, just for the record. So there's a bit of a drought in between there. I don't know if we blame the coaching, but I guess that no big deal. Have you guys seen the master plans for Blackburn Park or Klahani Park?
We've been directed to the Blackburn one. I haven't had a chance to take a look. I have not seen Klahani either.
Okay, well, we have those plans, and as you guys know, new fields are expensive. No matter what you do, even just to keep fields are expensive. So we do plan for them, we do budget for them, but thank you for bringing to our attention the number of kids that are being involved in playing, and obviously we've seen the success, so we'll take it under advisement and see if we can work with engineering to remedy the easier, cheaper things right now, which is batting cages, and we'll decide on those types of things in January.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, come forward, please.
Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. Is it okay if I pass something around for you guys to look at as well while we're chatting?
If you don't mind just giving your name and residential address, that would be great. Thank you.
My name is Crystal Burgess, and I'm located in Canoe, 7030 50th Street, Northeast. I'm a photographer and a storyteller. I'm a mother, a wife, and a business owner. I've been born and raised in Salmon Arm, and I reside in Canoe now. I'm here tonight to request a financial and a committee support to have a big idea arts project for our small town. As a reference, I've passed out some photos. You may recognize some of the faces in there. Actually, I was lucky enough to document our Pee Wee team as they won the provincial championships, and you're going to see an image of them in there as well. When I was a kid, I remember going to my grandma's, and we would go through her hope chest, and we would look through all of the things that were in there. You know, her wedding dress, and the one thing that, you know, we would always come back to is the photos. There'd be brown paper bags full of photos and albums full of photos. My grandma was born in 1919 in Boissevain, Manitoba, and those pictures would tell the story of her life. You could see her life on the farm, her life as a one-room school teacher for years. As a family, we're very fortunate to have those visual, tangible pieces of our family's history. As an adult, when we go to visit my parents, the thing that always happens is you spread the photo albums out on the coffee table or on the kitchen table, and you look back at all of the memories. They're full of, you know, torn edged photos of that rust-colored velvet couch, the floral one that everybody's parents had. So you'd see those images. You'd see pictures of you as a kid playing on the swing set. And when you look at that picture, you can feel how the poles would lift off the ground when your brother was pushing you too hard. You'd see pictures of, you know, just in the kitchen with an ashtray that's so full of cigarettes that you can almost like taste the smoke in the room. And it brings back all of those memories. And that's a documentation of the life of that we had. Those were the images of my childhood. Today, the question is, how are we documenting and preserving the moments? It's not just the news, or it's not just the new things, but the everyday. When our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren look back, what are they going to be seeing from us? So what I'm asking for is to propose a partnership with the City of Salmon Arm to develop a factual and tangible documentation of our city today. By asking questions about how we live, we can learn more about who we are. Where do we live? Where do we play? Where do we learn? And where do we pray? My goal is to work with the community partners, including the Community Heritage Commission, the Cultural Master Plan Task Force, the Art Gallery, and the Salmon Arm Museum to develop and identify the criteria of what makes up our city. We would use actual statistical data on factors like age, race, income, religion, housing, employment, diet, education, to visually show what our city looks like. So if you can imagine, based on 100 images of housing, how many people are homeless? How many people live in mansions? How many people live in a trailer park? How many people are renting? How many people are in a single family dwelling? When we can take that information and have that visual representation for us to see, it can be very beneficial. And the way that we would showcase this would be in a public showing so that all of the community can come together and see what they actually look like. Also in a printed book and with a digital version, because you need to have the community, the history, and the technology all working together. The beautiful part of documentary work is that the truth that it tells. While I'm assuming that the result will be a story of how similar we are, there might also be some ugly truths that get told as well. And that's not only okay, but it's critical to telling an honest story of who we are today and where we're going. So I'd love to explore of how we can work together to create a meaningful, accurate, and tangible account of our lives today for our community tomorrow.
Thank you, Crystal. Do councillors have any questions? Okay. Councillor Wall, yes, Councillor Walsh Richmond. You're like, come on. No, press again.
I'm learning. Thanks, Your Worship, and through you to Crystal, thank you for your presentation as chair of the Cultural Master Plan Task Force. Can I just tell you, you're welcome at any of our meetings anytime, as is the public in general. And do you have so you're asking for a financial consideration, but also council support or or ability to connect with these committees?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I think a financial aspect, especially utilizing services like maybe possibly your legal services and things, when you do a project of this size, you need to be aware of all of the licensing, the copyright, the releases for anybody that would be participating in that. So it's really important to have the the business side of things taken care of. You probably have a better system of going about that than I might have. So there's probably resources that could be piggybacked to save money and things, and also to work to find possibly grant money or other community partners that might be able to work together on something like that so that you can bring it to fruition.
Okay, so if I understand, cash in kind and connecting to the right groups.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Crystal, for presenting to us. Next presenter, I think, is Hugh Chalmers, Mayor of Canoe.
Mayor and Council, Hugh Chalmers, 4951 75th Avenue in Canoe. I came to the budget review earlier this evening with road maintenance as my pet peeve. And I guess having spent an hour being educated on budgets and getting some numbers, we have a frontage tax that is primarily for paving or overlay, as they call it. And that generates about $900,000 a year. When I asked some questions about what we needed to maintain the roads, because we have so many of them, it's 2.2 million. So we aren't funding 50% of what we need. And asking some questions about some specific roads, I found out that we spend that money maintaining the better roads because we can keep them up to snuff. And the ones that are the worst get left because they need water lines, sewer lines, major expense. So it's not just a road budget issue. You know, you have to look at the services that are under the roads and how the hell do we pay for those. So, you know, if you think that you can throw $1 million and it'll solve the problem, it won't. That's just the start of it. So I guess I'm asking you as a new council with 4 years to grab a handful of guts, raise our taxes, and spend some money maintaining the roads. You got 4 years, you can take flack for a year, they'll forget about it the second year, and we'll support you. We'll write letters, we'll do whatever we have to back you up. So.
Thank you, Hugh. Thanks for doing some research prior to coming in as well. Questions from council? Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just a comment, we were talking about the hour and a half before the meeting, the budget input, or the budget, not input, sorry, just the session to come in and look at the budget and understand it. And I was questioning with the lack of participation if it was worth it. But just what you've said and what you learned from it makes that session worth it. Clearly, it helped you understand better the magnitude of the problem.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm pretty sure if we asked everybody here if they wanted their taxes to go up lots this year and they'll forget about it next year, they'd all vote in favor. So, but all seriousness, thank you for doing some research and learning what the reality is. And the fact is that tax you talked about, frontage tax, it's a parcel tax. It's not based on your frontage, it's every parcel pays the same.
Yep.
And we need to review that this budget. And we've had, in my time here, I think we've had 3 road analysis reports that tell us every time, yes, Rob, that we're significantly underfunding keeping the roads even where they're at.
Yeah.
But it's allocating scarce resources. And I think your message is heard. We need to keep working on our road infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Councillor Eliason?
Yeah, I just wanted to, the parcel tax started out at $60 a parcel. Is it 120 now? It's 120, and we maintain and we plow and we do all. We only use that money for asphalt, but we have 500 plus kilometers of roads within the city. And the city's 192 square kilometers, so I think we have.
Well, you have more roads per capita than anybody else in the valley.
Yeah, and
about 230 kilometers of roads, but That's both lanes, right? So 500.
Okay, so we have double that. And did you guys know we have 125 kilometers of sewer pipes? Stuff you learned tonight, hey? That's it, thanks.
Councillor Eliason, thank you very much, you, for coming and presenting to us. Are there any other presenters who would like to speak to us about the budget?
I took the fourth spot there, Alan. On
Yeah,
the
no
list of
trouble.
chairs, and in line with David Askew, in line with our summary statement about Salmon Arm that Crystal alluded to about a small city with big ideas, there is a big idea, and I want to make a request, nothing to do with Askew's. There's a big idea unfolding, I think, these days, and that is this whole thing about the driverless car. And some cities, such as Kelowna, have held workshops already on the implications. And if, there's billions being spent on the 5G network, which is needed to process all the data so that all those cars can communicate. So I think if you look around, there was a 1.5-page article in the Globe and Mail by a retired vice president of General Motors who said he's been working on that project within General Motors, and they believe that there won't be private automobiles in the future. It'll all be an Uber type arrangement where we're all being driven around in a driverless car. So I would like to propose to you that the City of Salmon Arm set aside a budget for the forthcoming year to hold a workshop on what is happening, because if you think about it, I won't need a parking lot. You don't need underground parking under apartment buildings and so on. It has huge implications if it's actually coming to pass for the future development of this town, and I think it behooves us as a small city with big ideas to think about that.
Thank you very much, David. Appreciate it. Are there any other presenters that would like to present to us about the budget? Okay, I would like to thank all of the groups. I think it was a really great cross-section of the City of Salmon Arm with a variety of different interests, and it was interesting for us to hear from you. We've referred them to specific referrals for the budget, so you're welcome on January 7th. I would suggest if you get here it's usually the afternoon, probably be safe if you got here at noon, 12:30ish, and you would see us go through those items. So thank you very much. We're going to take a 2-minute break just to have people who need to exit. I know the people interested in the public hearings have been waiting. So at 8:54, please everyone be seated and we will resume. Yep. If you're quick.
Hey there. Good, how are you? I'm Jeff. Hey, Jeff from Buddies. Good, how are you? This is one of the longer ones this is probably a level of education. Yeah. Yeah. Now we're getting kind of you need to be yeah.
I developed the plan, I did the plan. Nice to meet you. I don't know if you saw the bus going by. I don't know, but I was impressed by that.
And Lana was on that.
I was glad you took the hit.
Generally,
I was
projects
wondering
like
you were
this,
going to say
you
that.
follow a statement of intent Yeah, when you expect, like, the new world, that's how much it's involved. Yes, yeah, for sure.
Oh, 8:54.
Well, to us, I think you'll see the referral.
Way to go, you're back.
Oh, we gotta go back. We'll talk about.
Okay, we will reconvene here.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. No, we having a brain jam break?
Aaron, would you like me to start? Is that okay if I start? Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much for your patience, those of you in the gallery. Appreciate you staying for the public hearing part. So the first piece is 3 hearings regarding cannabis retail outlets, and I have a short hearing procedure to read, and then we'll go through each of the 3 of them. I'd like to open up the hearings for CRS 1, CRS 2, and CRS 3, cannabis retail outlets. Following the reading of the motion by the CAO, I will request the Director of Development Services to explain the application. I will then ask 3 times for the submissions from the gallery, giving the opportunity for the applicant and public to speak. Council will also have the opportunity to ask questions. Once this is complete, I will close the hearing and council will vote on the motion. Could we please hear the motion for Provincial Cannabis Retail Store License Referral number 000839, the Greenery Cannabis Boutique Limited, 190 Trans-Canada Highway Northeast.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a motion moved by Councillor Lavery, seconded by Councillor Flynn, that Council approve application CRS 1 and that Council has considered its resolution with respect to the following. 1. Provincial Cannabis Retail Store License Referral number 000839. 2. City Zoning Bylaw number 2303 and City Policy number 3.20. And 3, public notification followed by the holding of a hearing at the regular council meeting of November 13th, 2018.
Thank you very much, and I'll ask the Director of Development Services to please present.
Sure, Your Worship. So this is the first cannabis retail store application to the City of Salmon Arm. The application was referred to the city by the province's new liquor cannabis retail branch on September 14th, 2 months ago. And that application went through the internal referral process here at the city. We evaluated the application with our new cannabis retail store policy, number 320. And the proposal for the Greenery Cannabis Boutique at 190 Trans-Canada Highway Northeast is being made by Mike Polton, who's here today. And the building we're talking about is mostly identified by where Eco Treats is located, as shown on the aerial photo. The building is divided into 2 units, and the proposed cannabis retail store is intended for unit number 2, which faces Alexander Street and the Trans-Canada Highway. The property is zoned C2, Town Center Commercial, and that zoning supports a retail store, and a cannabis retail store falls within that use. And the new policy that I mentioned earlier supports this proposed location. It's considered the commercial core area of the city, and the policy supports a maximum of 4 cannabis retail stores in that commercial core area. And in your agenda package, there's the map related to the policy, and the green area is considered the commercial core of that policy. So to summarize, the proposal referred by the province in front of you right now, CRS 1, is supported by the policy.
Thank you very much. I'll call 3 times for submissions, starting with Mike. Is he here? Oh, yes. Do you want to speak from there, Michael, if you can speak loudly?
Sure. I just wanted to say thank you for having me here. Just wanted to let you know that over the course of the past week, as per your advice, we have reached out to the neighboring businesses and provided our contact information and explained what we're hoping to achieve, and haven't had any sort of negative feedback as a result.
Thank you. Do any of council have a question for Mr. Bolton? Hearing none, I will call a second time from the gallery for anyone wishing to make a submission on this application. I'll call again. Any submissions on this application? For council's information, we do have 1 written submission. It's in your package. I won't read it out. From Joan Scholander. I know that you've all had an opportunity to read that. I'll ask for a third and final time. Hearing no submissions, I'll close this hearing and we will consider the bylaw. Comments from council. Councillor Eliason.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I know the letter speaks to parking and traffic. No matter what we do, I think if there's a business in there, there'll be traffic and there will be congestion, there'll be parking issues. I did speak with the owner of the business next door, who was positive about it and was optimistic about the potential of having coexisting within the same building, and had no complaints or objections. And I will support this application and hope everything goes well.
Thank you. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Worship. At planning, before we brought this to then council and then to public hearing, we talked about the fact that this does meet the new policy in every way. Based on that, I'm going to vote to support this. It's a pretty easy one when it meets all the provisions of our policy. I do understand some of the concerns Joan speaks to, but I think it's important to note the purchase from the store doesn't mean people are going to walk outside and use it by the Salvation Army. There's a difference between purchasing and using. And I would like to understand a bit more about which parking spots are metered in that area with regards to Fletcher Park, but the parking problem exists, and I don't think this will compound it by much, because it's a pretty big parking lot that they're in the building that they're renting in is adjacent to. So I will vote in support, and I do hear the concerns of Joan, but I do think that this meets our policy in every way, and we always hear about parking.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Hearing none, I will ask the question. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. We'll move on to application CRS2, Provincial Cannabis Retail Store License Referral number 000972, Zancana Retail Corporation, 51 2801 10th Avenue, Trans-Canada Highway Northeast. I ask for the motion.
Moved by Councillor Flynn, seconded by Councillor Eliason, that Council approve application CRS 2 and that Council has considered its resolution with respect to the following: Provincial Cannabis Retail Store License Referral 972, City Zoning Bylaw 2303 and Policy 3.20, and public notification followed by the holding of a hearing at the regular council meeting of November 13th.
Thank you. Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Worship. This is Cannabis Retail Store application number 2, and this property is known for the Max Convenience Store, the Budget Vehicle Rental, and the Home Restaurant. It's all one property, and there's some lease area within the building that was proposed for a cannabis retail store. As was mentioned at the Planning Committee meeting, the applicant secured a lease within the building prior to our policy being adopted in August, and the applicant took a bit of a gamble on that, and I spoke with the applicant, and he was fully aware of the risk that he took in securing that lease. The policy, the new city policy regarding cannabis retail stores does not support this location due to its proximity to 3 schools.
Thank you. I'll ask again 3 times for submissions, starting with the applicant. Is the applicant present?
I don't think the applicant was going to show up tonight.
Okay. I'll ask for a second time if there's any submissions from the gallery. Asking for a third and final time. Seeing no submissions, I'll close this hearing and I'll open it up for discussion by council. Councillor Eliason.
Yeah, thanks. We discussed, just so if you're interested, we also have these planning meetings the previous Monday at 8 a.m. and we'd love to see this kind of turnout. But we discussed these at great length at our planning meetings, and the discussion around this and what led to the council not supporting moving this one forward, and I'm going to continue that, is that when we set the policy, we said people were concerned about proximities to schools, and this map doesn't show how close it is to Bastion, the senior high, South Broadview, or Shuswap Middle, or King's Christian, but this one does. And so this wasn't an area recommended by the public when we brought forward this policy. And so at this time, it's in my opinion that we're not ready to have a retail location in this location because of the proximity of those schools and the young people, and that's what the public asked for, and that's what the police asked for. So at this time, I won't be supporting this application.
Thank you. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Worship. And similar to what Councillor Lyson has said, I think it's important for everybody to note that our staff, specifically Director of Development Services, has played a significant role in helping us develop the policy, taking community input, and putting together a policy that we as council supported. I'm listed as the person making the motion because we had to have a motion to put it on the floor, but I will vote against my own motion because it really wouldn't be right for our second application for this use to contravene one of the key principles of our new policy, and therefore I cannot support it. It may change, as Councillor Eliason mentioned, as the community develops and as we see how it goes with the current policy, but this is just too close to 3 schools, and therefore I will vote against the motion that I was the mover.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. I too will vote against the motion. We just made the rule. It's too soon to make an exception to it. It's that simple for me.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mayor Harrison. I'll be voting against the motion as well, but I was going to mention I was a little slow on the draw for the first application, but seeing as how we have a full gallery here, the process goes like this. An applicant applies to the province for a retail for a retail store. The province does a round 1 of vetting. Round 2, it's referred to the city for a yes or no about acceptability. And that's where we are now. Some local governments have said we don't want any. We, as has been alluded to, have gone through a very in-depth public input process that have led to the delineation right now, starting off of where we and where the public has said they want locations. And this doesn't fit that lengthy public process that we went through. So that's why I think I'll be voting against it. Step 3 is the decision is made here, that is sent back to the province. They do another round of vetting, and then the province lets the applicant and the city know the results of the provincial decision. At that point, it becomes not in front of council, but it comes back and a business license and all the business licensing procedures and fire and safety checks go in place. So that's where we are now, that step 2 in the band. So I will, as indicated, I will be voting against the motion, but I just wanted to get the process in here. These are new processes for us as well, and this will be the approach that we're doing with all the applications in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery, and thanks for going through that process for us. It's appreciated. Any other speakers? All those in favor? No. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion is defeated unanimously.
Yes, 7-hour meeting.
Application number 3, Provincial Cannabis Retail Store License Referral number 1078, Salmon Arm Liquor Store Limited, 111 Lakeshore Drive Northeast. Could I have a motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Wallace Richmond, seconded by Councillor Lavery, that Council approve application CRS 3 and that Council has considered its resolution with respect to the following: Provincial Retail Store License Referral 1078, Zoning Bylaw 2303 and Policy 3.20, and public notification followed by the holding of a hearing at the regular council meeting of November 13th.
Thank you. Director of Development Services.
Your Worship, the 3rd cannabis retail store application on the agenda is for Shuswap Park Mall on Lakeshore Drive. The property is owned by Shuswap Park Holdings, and the applicant is Salmon Arm Liquor Store Limited. And the property shown on the air photo here is where predominantly Askew's is located, and the Salmon Arm Liquor Store. And within the same building, there's going to be a new storefront created within the floor plan with a separate entrance if this is approved. And the policy does support this store. If it is approved by City Council and the province, it would be store number 2 within the downtown commercial core. And here's the policy showing the commercial core area where a maximum of 4 stores is supported by the policy.
Great, thank you very much. I'll call for a first time for input to this one. Starting with the applicant. Is Mr. Erickson here? Okay, is the applicant's partner here at all? Okay. I will call a second time for anyone from the gallery who would like to give input. Calling for a third and final time. Seeing none, I will close this hearing. I'll ask for council's consideration if you have any questions or comments. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Those are the first cannabis retail outlets applications that we've processed, and appreciate staff's work. We are trying to process them as fast as we can. And as Councillor Lavery said, now this goes back to the province for their final vetting. We're now on item 23, statutory public hearings. And for the statutory public hearing, I'll read a little longer opening statement. This public hearing for bylaws number 4286 and 4287 is convened pursuant to section 464 of the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, everyone is welcome to make presentations to council, and all present who believe their interest in property is affected by these matters will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions. If you wish to speak concerning the proposed bylaws, please approach council and commence your presentation by stating your name and residential address. The function of council this evening is to receive the views of the public. Council will not debate the merits of these proposals with individuals. However, council members may question presenters regarding their submissions. Everyone is encouraged to make his or her views known. To ensure everyone a reasonable opportunity to be heard, the following rules of procedure have been established for this public hearing. First of all, please direct all submissions to the chair, and I will then direct any of your questions to the correct staff person. Following the introduction of the bylaws by the city staff, the floor will be open for presentations, commencing with the applicant, followed by other interested parties in the order in which the chair recognizes them. We won't limit presentations unless the submission is not relevant to the matter at hand. There'll be 3 calls for submissions prior to the closing of this public hearing. I ask that everyone respect the views of others and try to keep your presentations as concise as possible. Legislation does not permit council to hear or receive submissions from the public after the hearing is closed. I will now ask the Director of Development Services to explain the proposal.
Your Worship, the first bylaw under consideration at this public hearing is bylaw number 4286, which proposes to redesignate Lot 1, Plan EPP 51225 for the property addressed at 2960 Okanagan Avenue Southeast from institutional to neighborhood commercial in order to support an associated rezoning application, and I'll describe that after.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll start the public hearing with the applicant if he wishes to speak. Mr. Boudreau, would you like to present?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I didn't plan to speak tonight, but just to reiterate, we're a high-tech business and looking to consolidate our engineering and project delivery activities into one site, and which instigated this request for rezoning.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Mr. Boudreau? Okay, seeing none, thank you. I will ask again for input from the public. If you would like to make input, please come forward. Hello and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Harrison. Honorable councilors. My name is Garfield Chersky. I'm here with my wife, Marguerite. We live at 416 27th Street Southeast, which means that this property is kind of in our backyard. We have lived there. We built a home there 23 years ago. So for 23 years, we have contributed to the tax base of this wonderful city. So we have some concerns, of course, about the change in zoning. It was institutional, meaning previously, I believe, college, portables. We have the Shuswap Middle School right behind us as well, green space. So we do not, while we do not object to someone purchasing this property, we are concerned about it being rezoned. We have a letter that is addressed Hi Neighbors. Unfortunately, it's not dated, but we received this in approximately the last month. One point that is raised is that the current zoning on the property is fine for what we are doing. We appreciate very much that these folks have tried to communicate with us in the neighborhood, but our concern is, of course, if the zoning is fine for what they are doing, why rezone? Now, we understand that they want to rezone so that beyond using the existing buildings, that they would be able to build other buildings. Therein, our concern is raised. We are in a residential area. We're surrounded by residential area, schools and the city work yard and the fire hall, all within a easy walking distance. So another statement made here is that this zoning will be attractive and available to potential new businesses. So it's brought to our attention that this would in fact be a new zoning for the city of Salmon Arm. What's next? My neighbor across the street can, what, run a welding shop? Or what's the case? So our concerns are those, to the point where we are concerned about the value of our property. This, if it was rezoned, would probably motivate us to no longer be a contributor to the tax base of Salmon Arm, that we would choose to sell and leave the community. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. And we will get to your answers later on in the hearing.
Thank you.
Asking again for presentations from the gallery.
Your Worship and Council, my name is Wayne Pierce. I reside at 448 27th Street Southeast, which is approximately 120 meters south of the subject property. I do know the applicant, I'm being forthright on this, but I also consider that the opportunity for a high-tech zone, high-tech zoning, and not knowing exactly what that zoning will be, as an opportunity for the students of the adjacent school. In my mind, the high-tech refers to not a heavy industry, but rather an intellectual industry with some minor assembly on site. I too have concerns about zoning changing from institutional, but I see it as a potential partnership depending on how we treat that zoning, how we classify that zoning. So I'd be interested in hearing exactly what that zoning will be. I do support the applicant because I know him personally, but I have concerns about the zoning. I want it to be tight. And I thank you for hearing my concerns.
Thank you. At this time, could I just ask staff if they would read out the permitted uses for this proposed new zoning, because that might help the gallery.
Yes, Your Worship. So there's 10
Can we
permitted.
just call up on the page 186 on the screen, and then there'll be a visual and verbal as well? Thank you very much.
Can you enlarge it at all?
High technology research and development, and all the italicized terms are defined in the zoning bylaw. So there's definitions tied to many of these uses. Office, education training facility, parts assembly, commercial daycare facility, health services center, public use, private utility, public utility, and accessory use, including dwelling units intended for employees of a principal use, of which the floor area of a dwelling unit shall not exceed 200 meters square, or 2,152 square feet, or be less than 29 meters square, 312 square feet. The new use that is being proposed for the zoning bylaw is high technology research and development, and that is defined as commercial office use involving the research and or design, including the light assembly and value-added production of items and components used in the fields of computer software and programming, electronics, telecommunications, aeronautics, precision engineering, robotics, biochemistry, healthcare, and related industries. High technology research and development does not include activities that may cause a nuisance or negative impacts such as noises, odors, emissions, vibrations, or other externalities off the property line.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll ask for a second time for submissions from the gallery. Please do come forward.
Thanks, Mayor Harrison. Lana Fitt, representing the Salmon Arm Economic Development Society Board, 1281 15th Street Southeast.
Welcome.
Thank you. So EDS staff had the opportunity to work with the applicant throughout this process, and just pleased to be here tonight to bring forward some comments from the EDS board. Tech Brew is recognized by the SAIDS board as a rapidly growing robotics company, one of many high-tech firms in our community that contribute to our economic well-being. Supporting the growth of Salmon Arm's technology sector is a priority for our organization. And in particular, this project directly aligns with the goals of technology sector expansion and workforce development. The inclusion of a high-tech research and development zone, as well as a potential for residential live-work studios on the proposed property and the new C10 zone will support the growth of our high-tech cluster in Salmon Arm. 2960 Okanagan Ave is felt to provide a central walkable location, which is ideal for supporting the future live-work studio concept. The proximity of nearby amenities, such as recreation opportunities, including our parks, trails, and sports venues, make this property terrific for attracting, the creative class, which is an identified target market for resident attraction for our community. This new high-tech zone further supports and aligns with our new Salmon Arm community brand, which you've heard a little bit about tonight. Small city, big ideas. As Council is aware, one of the key target markets within the new community brand strategy is the attraction of high technology firms. The addition of a new high-tech zone in our community will serve to reinforce our community's message that we are well positioned to grow our high-tech cluster. SAIDS recognizes Tech Brew as an important community partner who's proven supportive of education and training opportunities, workforce development, and business mentorship in Salmon Arm. The activities described within the development proposal for this site align with and support our organizational and community goals, and therefore this application is strongly supported by the Economic Development Society Board of Directors.
Great, thank you. Do councillors have questions for Ms. Fitt? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. I'll ask for a second time. Presenters, please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor Harrison and Chancellors. As you can see, I work for Technology Brewing. I'm wearing the uniform right now, so there is a fair amount of bias to what I'm about to share. But I'd like to share a little bit about our story as to what brought us to this property and why we do require the zoning upgrade. So the first part is that we're trying to rapidly expand a business while keeping our overhead as low as possible to make that a viability. And we're not only expanding a business, we're expanding a research and development heavy business, which means there's a lot of risk and not a lot of profitability in a lot of what we do, since we're such what they call the bleeding edge of technology. So we've been looking for a long time for a property that will accommodate our needs, both for industrial space and for the office space. Not only that, trying to pull talent in to join our team has been an issue in trying to find them appropriate accommodations. And one major concern that's been raised multiple times is accommodations that are relatively inexpensive, affordable. So with the one part of the zoning, we're looking to offer the opportunity to develop micro homes on this property, a concept that is very environmentally friendly and supported by many of the applicants that have been interested in us. And not only that, the buildings on the property have a limited lifespan left. We've just moved in, and with that moving effort, I have found a lot of areas where we've needed to make accommodations to even allow us to do what we need to do on the property. Our main office is in a portable that I think was rated for, was it 5 years left? 15 years left, okay, good thing I asked, don't want to be lying. 15 years left. And mind you, this is a portable building. Now, it serves for what we intend to do as far as office space right now. But if we're trying to grow a company that is approaching an international market of automation, having big customers come and visit our portable isn't necessarily making it any easier for them to take us seriously. We're already facing the detriment of being in a small town in the middle of nowhere and, and trying to compete with companies that have been in the game a lot longer than us. So part of the high-tech zoning coming in is that we would, yes, in fact, like to build a larger building that is more appropriate for our use, and not only for our use, but as a quick aside, we've done a lot of work with the school. Our previous location was across from Jackson campus. We had lots of tours coming through our building. We've been supporting in the tech fairs, and we hope to continue these efforts in being near the Shuswap Middle School. Having kids come join us in older and potentially falling apart buildings is not quite as ideal as having them come somewhere that represents the high-tech future that some of them would like to be evolving their educations into. So on multiple notes, the note of attracting talent, the note of attracting business, and the potential of further supporting our entire community in moving towards the high-tech sector that we hope to be in, attracting very qualified talent to come live with us. We really hope that this becomes an opportunity that we can all share together. And as a last little bit, I love the forest that's on that property. I love that we've been able to move in and clean up the remnants of what were break-and-enters and drug users right next to the properties that were backing onto it. And I love, I as having gone to this school and walked up and down through that property myself, I didn't realize that I was in danger while I was doing it. So I really like what we're able to bring to this property, and I sincerely hope that we can work with the neighbors around us to maintain their standard of life and find any way possible to make sure that everyone cohesively exists within the space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for this presenter? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
I'll ask again for a second time if there are others who wish to present this evening.
Hello, my name is Robin McCaffrey. I'm another employee of Tech Brew. Riley hit on a note earlier regarding drugs and various paraphernalia that has been cleaned up on the site when we moved in. In regards to the first person's concerns regarding property values and their concern regarding their own financial investment in the community, I think it is a valid concern, but with this new zoning opportunity and the inclusion of having people living on site, it is in our interests to maintain the property values within the area and grow them, as well as create an environment that is cleaner, healthier, and safer for all parties involved, especially those in the neighboring houses and whoever does end up living on this property. So with those sorts of thoughts in mind, I think for the first person's issues that they see this as an opportunity for potentially growing their own property share by attracting higher income wages into the neighborhood and benefiting them in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for this presenter? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll ask again if there's further presentations from the gallery. I'm going to ask one more time, a third and final time, if there's any presentations from the gallery. Anyone not had a chance to speak that would like to? Okay. There being no further presentations, I declare the public hearings for bylaws number 4286 and 4287 closed. Thank you very much for your submissions. Council will now consider the bylaws. So under reconsideration of bylaws, 24.1, Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 4286, 2690 Okanagan Avenue Southeast, institutional to neighborhood commercial. Third reading. Councillor Eliason.
Thanks, Your Worship, and it's been a long day here at Council. You guys might not know, but we've been here since 1:30, so you're not maybe getting the best of us, but you're definitely getting our attention. I'll keep my comments short. Today, Amazon went to New York and Virginia.
Councillor Eliason, do you mind if I interrupt you because I made a mistake?
Oh.
So we have to have the motion
Oh,
moved and
go for the
seconded first.
motion. Yeah, you bet.
My apologies, and we'll put you right back on.
So it's moved by Councillor Flynn, seconded by Councillor Eliason, that the bylaw entitled OCP Amendment Bylaw Number 4286 be read a third time.
Thank you. Councillor Eliason, continue, please.
Sweet. Canada didn't get Amazon today. Shocking news. The Olympics aren't going to Calgary today. They said no. And both of those cities, Toronto and Calgary, were chasing smokestacks, and that's a thing that small towns and small cities used to do. And rather than chase smokestacks and try and go out and attract business, I think it's important that we try and grow what we have, and what we have right now is an emerging tech sector. So I will support this rezoning for high tech, and I'm super happy that we're going to replace the college students in those buildings with college grads and attract people to our community. So for all the reasons, I think this is a great idea, and I think we should all support it.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder to council that you can speak to either the zoning or the OCP. There's two motions. First one's an OCP, but it's okay to make your comments general. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Worship. I just had one question for staff before for the Chief Administrative Officer before I make my comments. On page 185, yeah, we've been here a while today, haven't we? Page 185, it says the motion for consideration, staff recommendation is to adopt the motion for consideration, but it says, and further that should council require the owner applicant to provide a traffic impact analysis, that we need to do something about that. Is the motion, can we just remove that from the motion completely and vote on the motion just to be adopted as listed? I'm confused by that mention of a traffic impact study. Personally, I don't believe one's needed. I don't think there'll be more traffic. I think there'll be less or similar to what has been there. So can you answer that for me, CAO?
Through your worship, the traffic impact study is not included.
Okay, I just wanted to check. Okay, good. Okay, speaking to the motion, you know, it's interesting that for those of you who don't know that we just went through are going through and completed a significant community branding process led by some people at this table in the community and Lana and all of that. And it's been mentioned a few times, small city, big ideas. Did I get that right? Mm-hmm. But in that branding research, I think I was personally very shocked, not shocked, but pleasantly surprised as to how evolved our tech industry is because of people like Mr. Boudreau and companies like his. And as Councillor Eliason said, chasing smokestacks is an old thing, and besides, nobody wants smokestacks in their communities anymore. This, to me, is exactly what economic development is about. This is exactly what small town community growth is about, where you've got people that have lived here for 20 plus years, moved here around a similar time to myself, building a business, employing their family in the situation, bringing in young people, making Salmon Arm a place for a destination for high tech. And what's interesting is staff did a great job on this with the high tech zone and things like that. But staff wanted to make it specific to this zone, a CD zone. And Mr. Boudreau said, no, I want us to say we're open for tech business. And I want it to be very specific to that. And that's just showing that this isn't just about his business. It's about his investment in our community and his family's investment in our community. And I think that this will be an awesome addition to our community. I think the zone is going to be a great addition to our community. And I also happen to live and turn on 27th every day to go down the other end of 4th, and I don't think this is going to decrease my property values. I think it's going to increase them. So I am very much in favor, not because it might increase my property values, but I think it will increase the potential of our community, and therefore I will vote wholeheartedly yes to this application.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Councillor Wallace Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. I too will be voting in support of both of these motions, or this motion with two parts to it. Am I understanding that right? Okay. First of all, I want to talk about cause and effect. I understand what the neighbors are saying. Will this impact my property value? Will this change my neighborhood? My sense is no, because you're going from an academic campus to really what's called a corporate campus. And it's sending an important signal to industry that we welcome high tech, and high tech has a much lower footprint than typical industry. If it had been a residential neighborhood prior, we likely wouldn't even be having this conversation. So you have to remember what it was before, what we're making the decision about today. So I'm sorry, I can't agree with you through you, Your Worship, with the neighbors on that. The prior owner did not pay property tax as a school district. The new owner will. So I'm thank you in advance for that contribution to the community. And I think the property already has changed. It's been cleaned up. It's being attended to, and I look forward to all the kids who, as the young employee told us, who used to walk through that as middle school kids, who will one day work there. So you have my wholehearted support.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Yes, thank you. I will support both the OCP and the zoning amendments. I think that this is a pretty exciting opportunity here. And we've got a research and development company that reaches out across the world. It's an opportunity to showcase this. I too believe that it will actually, this is a tech campus that is going to increase the adjacent property values around it. I think that time will tell, but certainly the lens that I put on this is that this is an incredibly positive addition, not only for Salmon Arm, but it will be for the neighborhood as well. The opportunities for expanding educational partnerships that are already happening to link to the college, to be close to amenities is, we probably couldn't design it any better. And I think the applicant has designed it for us. So I wholeheartedly support it. I would make perhaps one suggestion is maybe there could be an open house as we proceed with this, an open house for the neighbors to show the pretty cool stuff, low impact stuff for the neighborhood that happens in there. I'd suggest everybody will be blown away, and thank you for the application.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. I agree with much of what my colleagues have said here. I think for Mr. Nadler, we appreciate you coming and presenting. And I just want to talk a little bit about the official community plan, if it's possible, just to put the official community plan up on that screen. So there's the official community plan, and the neighbors in that area have enjoyed an institutional designation to that property for some time, which means not much has happened on there. But what we found is, since the school district has not used the property, it's really deteriorated and started to cause problems. The natural sort of change for that property would actually have been a dark yellow color, which is a medium density residential, which would have meant a possibility of zoning change to multifamily residences. And it's actually well suited for multifamily residences because it's so close to amenities. I would suggest that this zoning is actually going to be much less disruptive to the neighbors on 27th, certainly traffic-wise and just action-wise. So I wanted to point that part out. It certainly wouldn't have stayed institutional as far as the city plan goes. I do agree with all of my colleagues about the tech industry, and the message we want to give out there to not just BC but to the world is that we are open for business and we are open for innovation. And this is a big sign of that. And as you can see from the people who spoke, we've been speaking about bringing young people to the city. That's what we want to do, and young people work in this industry. So for those reasons, I will support the OCP amendment. Is there any other speakers? All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. We'll now consider the zoning amendment. Zoning amendment bylaw number 4287, third reading. Could I have the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Wallace Richmond, seconded by Councillor Eliason, that the bylaw entitled zoning amendment bylaw number 4287 be read a third time.
I think we all had an opportunity to speak to both. Is there anyone that would like to say anything else? All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much for you patient people in the gallery. This is our question and answer period. Does anyone in the gallery have a question they would like to ask us? Okay, seeing none, I don't blame you. I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Councillor Lindgren, seconded by Councillor Flynn, that the regular council meeting of November 13, 2018 be adjourned.
All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Wow.
Councillor Lindgren, way to go, first one.
Nothing like a really long meeting for you.